in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What's a pity? Tomorrow never certain. What draws behind the curtain? The face of evil lurking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble from LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannon could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. Hey, I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest and the righteous in your corners.
Word 'em up, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Case Closed. Case Closed. That's 4 p.m. Central. No, I think that's 4 p.m. Eastern Time. 4 p.m. Eastern Time every Sunday. Every Sunday, it's going down. This is the place to be where we analyze, review topical shows, and provide insights with an all-star panel. Every week, shout out to those of you in the chat already. Shout out to Checking for You, Chuku Igwe, Sake Amethyst. Snuggles is in the building, okay? And she drops in and she says bye. All right. Shout out. Okay, so today we're going to be covering several things that have been regular media, social media, all kinds of things have been happening in the past, shall we say, 10 days. We have the Coach Prime situation. Negotiated himself a nice, sweet deal. Brittany Griner was able to get negotiated out as well. I believe that perhaps even Derek Jackson is out there negotiating some kind of deal right now. But negotiations is kind of like the through line here. But if we begin with the Brittany Griner case, for those of people here who may not know about it, I'm going to go ahead and play a clip here. A press release, a statement by President Biden after negotiating the release of Brittany Griner, former Olympian gold medalist, I believe, and WNBA star in Russia, admitted to having some things she shouldn't have had. And let's go ahead and see what Mr. Joe had to say. Hopefully you can hear the sound.
Well, good morning, folks, and it is a good morning. Moments ago, standing together with her wife, Sherelle, in the Oval Office, I spoke with Brittany Griner. She's safe. She's on a plane. She's on her way home. After months of being unjustly detained in Russia, held under intolerable circumstances, Brittany will soon be back in the arms of her loved ones and tolerable way home. After months of being unjustly detained in Russia.
You're muted, but unjustly, that was funny.
Yeah, unjustly detained. So what do you think about that, Kaizo, and then LAR? That aspect there, because he said it twice or three times even here. Like, what are your thoughts?
I mean, hey, he's playing the FE game, running for president a second time. The FE game is just trying to get the spirit of America. It's like, it's unjust. It's Russia. Russia's already declared war against Ukraine. So it's just playing on by that sort of Russia is the aggressor, bad guy type, and just ignoring everything else. It's interesting and just.
Exactly. So LAR, do you agree? He's just he's saying what he has to say. My spidey senses go up as, okay, this is kind of diplomatic language, political language, and perhaps even legal language, because why are you getting somebody back if they were justly detained?
No,
right?
there was another incident where Donald Trump went and rescued actually another celebrity, part of the Ball brothers, LiAngelo Ball. He stole in China from, I forgot which shop, right? And he just went there and got him back. There was no unjust. The thing with Donald Trump,
Gotcha.
he just does
He
stuff.
didn't say that.
He doesn't
Okay, he
care.
didn't.
He's like, this is our people. I'm getting him back. Simple. This other guy
Got
here, I don't know.
LAR, unjustly. What do you think? What are your thoughts so far?
Hey man, taking your vape all the way to Russia is a just thing to do. I mean, hey, you can get out of New York and all the way to Russia. More power to you. Now, the irony of this is, so if somebody from Mexico or the Caribbean, or let's just say Russia, flew from Russia to Texas, and they had and they had weed on them, would they be unjustly arrested?
Yeah. Again, not a. My reaction on it was, because the arguments going on Reddit talking about whether she was justly or unjustly held, and it's like, well, in these types of deals, it doesn't matter. It's like a presidential pardon, for example, or like a governor pardoning somebody. It's like it doesn't matter what you think or whether what the law over there versus the law over here says. And when he says something like unjustly, I do hear diplomatic and political, but I just wanted to pause it there for that. But let's play a little bit more of this.
Held under intolerable circumstances. Brittany will soon be back in the arms of her loved ones, and she should have been there all along. This is a day we've worked toward for a long time. We never stopped pushing for her release. It took painstaking and intense negotiations, and I want to thank all the hardworking public servants across my administration who worked tirelessly to secure her release. I also want to thank the UAE for helping us facilitate Brittany's return, because that's where she landed. These past few months have been hell for Brittany and for Charlie and her entire family and all her teammates back home. People all across the country have learned about Brittany's story, advocated for her release, stood with her throughout this terrible ordeal. And I know that support meant a lot to her family. I'm glad to be able to say that Brittany's in good spirits. She's relieved to finally be heading home. And the fact remains that she's lost months of her life, experienced a needless trauma. She deserves space, privacy, and time with her loved ones to recover and heal from her time being wrongfully detained. Brittany is an incomparable athlete, a two-time Olympic gold medalist for Team USA. She endured mistreatment in a show trial in Russia with characteristic grit and incredible dignity. She represents the best about America. It is across the board, everything about her. She wrote to me back in July. She didn't ask for special treatment, even though we've been working on a release from the day one. She requested a simple quote, "Please don't forget about me and the other American detainees. Please do all you can to bring us home." We never forgot about Brittany. We've not forgotten about Paul Whelan, who's been unjustly detained in Russia for years. This was not a choice of which American to bring home. We brought home Trevor Reed when we had a chance earlier this year. Sadly, for totally illegitimate reasons, Russia is treating Paul's case differently than Brittany's. And while we have not yet succeeded in securing Paul's release, we are not giving up. We will never give up.
Okay, so I'm going to do a quick pause there, and then let's kind of do this first round here. Let's start out with MOT here. So Griner's release does not mean that negotiations for other release or other release negotiations are being shafted, right? Is there a line that she cut? Why does
she's an ambassador?
Wait,
She's
hold on
an
a
ambassador.
second. Hold on a second.
She should even get diplomatic rights.
Hold on a second, sir. So let's start from there. Oh, I see someone else here. Starting with MOT and then Mr. Kaizo, LAR, and Dr. Tony just joined us.
Wow,
so why do we have to bring other people up? Did she cut in line? What's the idea of having to talk about other people being released or not?
No. Here's the thing. There's a process here that no one knows about. The only reason why this is a complaint issue is because it's a Black woman. That's why most people are talking about it. The process is they're always jostling to release people. Brittany, Miss Griner just happened to be the most useless person to actually trade for someone else. Like the actual arms dealer that they're released is no better than an employee that works at Lockheed Martin or Northrop Grumman or Boeing. Not a person who created arms, a person who sold arms to other countries. We sell arms to terrorist organizations all the time in the United States. It was a trade for someone who got caught doing business in the United States illegally. She was unjustly held nearly at a time of war, nearly the same way. Now, She was going over there to play basketball. No person thinks having hashish oil in CBD when Russia is known for cheating and doping scandals when it comes to gymnasts. Remember, they cheat all the time. So now to all of a sudden have a problem with hashish oil is ridiculous. The person never should have been held at all. Person should have went over there, did their job, played basketball, came home. We have a couple of issues here. And what this is doing is putting the manosphere and black men on the big screen in ways that we don't need. Because everybody is seeing that this is a win for the United States to get someone back who was unjustly accused over there. Most of these complaints come from people who don't understand the process. I was in the Air Force. I know what the process was. When Jesse Jackson went over there to rescue those hostages, I was on that plane when he went over there to rescue those hostages. I'm in some of those pictures. I don't talk about it, but I am in some of those pictures because I was in the Air Force at the time. And that's what happens when you go over there to get people. You go to the Air Force, and the Air Force is the people who sets up these type of things. So you have people who just want to complain that the black woman cut the line. Now, the Marine that's still over there, he's a spy. Just like we don't release Russian spies back into the United States hands, Russia's not going to release our spies over there back into our hands. Because, see, people don't understand the process at all here. That's the problem. Now, everything that the president is saying, this is between three people. Because remember, these are federal charges that the person was charged under. This is between the Justice Department, the Pentagon, which the United States Air Force falls under the jurisdiction of. And that's it. They didn't check in with the manosphere. They didn't check in with black men about whether or not they should do this. This is an international diplomacy type thing. Your opinion literally doesn't matter in this case. And it shows the direct ignorance of people don't understand. There's a limit to not knowing what's going on. At some point, you have to understand what the process is. But the process here is that we traded an athlete for a person who works at an arms manufacturer. Like, this is no different than somebody who works at Colt or anybody else. He's an arms merchant. We are arms merchants. This is literally a nothing. The only thing is the guy didn't register as an agent within the United States, and he wouldn't have got arrested. He clearly could have did all the things he could have did, but he just didn't register.
Can I ask you a question?
Oh, who was asking the question?
Yeah, it's me, Dr. Thunder.
Okay, how's it going, Dr.?
Yeah, what's happening? Do you think if Brittany Griner were not on the intersectional, at the close to the top of the intersectional list, do you think that she would have been selected as a good person for them to release? In other words, if Brittany Griner was just some black dude or some straight white dude for that matter, that the same sort of scenario happened, do you think that this administration would have, given up what they gave up for them?
Again,
just your opinion. Just your opinion.
No. My opinion is they would have did the same thing. The problem is that the people, not you, but most of the people who are asking these illegitimate questions don't understand the process. We gave up a person who worked at a arm. We traded a salesperson who sells arms to other countries for an athlete.
So you don't think it was any factor at all? You think it was a zero factor that she was
zero factor?
Okay, all right.
It could have been. Okay, let's say if it was Kevin Durant, and he was over there, he probably wouldn't have been held for such a longer period of time. By the way, but it's just that you got to have an even swap and an even trade. For this actual person who they wanted to release, this is the lowest of the low priority that they can trade for an athlete. Like, we have a bunch of Russian spies locked up within the country. A bunch of them that are never getting out. They're going to serve all 25 of those years that we sentenced them to, right? But like, an actual arms merchant is such a low priority. Like, to them, an actual athlete is such a low priority. But you have to understand that when you go into these situations, that you could potentially be used as a pawn, even if you don't pay attention to international affairs. Like if they just would have contacted the State Department before they went over there, this would have turned out differently. Now is not a good time to come over. Make sure that you got your stuff straight. They're looking to lock people up for any reason. They just made changes to laws before they even came over there. Because remember, we're talking about a country that does doping every single Olympics when it comes to figure skating. You can't tell me that these people all of a sudden have this issue that you get locked up for 9 years of hashish oil for when they actually tell their people to cheat. See, it doesn't matter. Like once you factor in the behavior around their actual sports and everything else, this stuff is such a low priority. But since most people within this space, they have nothing else to talk about. And it's putting black men on the map in a way that it doesn't need to be. Because no matter what the issue is, even if it's a black person, a black man being over there unjustly locked up, I would feel the same way. You see, I understand the process.
So you think that this story is a non-story. This is
Non-issue.
Nothing. It's nothing to report.
If you understand the process and if you understand that this jostling goes around, this happens all the time, 24 hours a day, every day. They're negotiating for releases every single day. This is just the day that you found out that they released this person for that person. They're always consistently negotiating these issues. Like I said, this is State Department, Justice Department, United States military, Pentagon issue. This has nothing to do with nobody else outside of that. Nothing else.
Okay, so I think that a few points were elucidated here. Okay, I just kind of asked the question about cutting in front of the line. That obviously, even if you don't understand the process, if you just understand the logic of how things typically work, and given the context of negotiations, that just because somebody got released doesn't mean that she cut in front of the line of somebody else, and all those kind of things. But Kaizo, if you don't mind, perhaps you can pick up on what anything else has been said, but the aspect of playing politics with it. What I mean by that is the FE aspect, the aspect of what Dr. Thunder was asking, the identity politics aspect of it, right? Making it about you when it is not about you. What are your thoughts about that? Either why people do that, or is it ever legitimate, or it's just politics? People are going to take whatever football or anything and turn it into a political football and say, hey, because you released this, it means you're not doing that. And because you released this means you're preferring that. If any of that makes sense, guys, I'll go ahead and respond.
Yeah, I don't think there's any preference based on morality or what's right or wrong. I mean, United States has people on many years for weed possession when it's now illegal in certain states, etc. So it's nothing to do with what's right or wrong, because they abuse their citizens day in, day out. It's more about politics. So people are preparing for the next political storm. They need to have a win. And I actually agree with parts of what MOT and Dr. Thunder mentioned is, okay, it makes perfect sense that she is part of this other queer sort of group. And also she's black, and also she's a woman. So if they can secure all those votes, because if you notice about the unjustness, whether it's just or not, it's irrelevant. Yeah, sure, it sucks for her. From my case, I would say this. She is an ambassador as a sports person representing the country. She probably should even have a diplomatic passport. So she should actually have all the rights as a proper ambassador does, because that's literally what her job is, to represent the country. So if the country can't rescue her for such a small issue, of have being in possession of or whatever, or something that's kind of something that's not that important, I just think this is political, and I think it makes sense. If I was Joe Sleepy Biden, I would do exactly the same thing: rescue her, get the black vote, get the queer vote, and then get also the maybe sports or whatever it is, sort of kind of alliances. What I can see about this is more money being given somewhere in some kind of donations that are going to come rolling in. That's what I think. And yeah, I think he needs a win. Donald Trump did a great job rescuing LiAngelo Ball from China. So Sleepy Joe has to do something.
Shout out. So let me play a little bit more of this and then
Okay. Well, before we go on, I just gave you the process. The process has nothing to do with anything that you just named. These are just opinions that has nothing to do with the process. Again, It's between the State Department, the Justice Department, and the Pentagon. Do you agree or do you disagree with that?
Are you
Yeah,
asking?
I would, I would,
Yeah. I'm asking the person because we keep inserting that she's gay and the LGBT and Joe Biden needs to win. These departments have hundreds of thousands of people in them that negotiate back and forth all the time. Did you hear that portion of my explanation?
yeah, but of course,
Okay.
people buy political maneuvers, right? So people in certain positions, they can talk to certain people in the Department of Justice and prioritize certain moves, which is going to be better for everyone. So yeah, I agree with you. There's a process and a system, but we
Okay.
can't be blind and sort of just say.
No, but wait,
it's
Kaizo. If you don't know, all you can say is that something happened, and then, as usual, people take political advantage of it one way or the other. But so basically, the idea is obviously, yeah. If I just stumble on and I save a blind, gay, paraplegic, black, or all the intersections, yeah, I stumbled and I saved them, and then I'm gonna go out there and be a hero about it. But it doesn't mean that my process was to go find that person, right, Kaizo?
Yeah, I mean, okay. So another point that MOT mentioned is that the guy that they traded her for was actually, a low level sort of. I think he said arms manufacturer. I'm not sure if that's what he was, or if he was a dealer. I don't know much about him specifically.
Sir, okay, so now we're running into another issue where you don't know who the guy is, but you're making complete points about who the guy is.
Well, look, I don't know if he's only an arms manufacturer or also dealer, because I read somewhere that he was also selling the arms manufacturer.
I know that's his job as an arms merchant is to sell weapons to people. So it's
Right,
like
right.
okay, it's like it's no different than working for FM Code or an actual ammunition factory within the
Oh, no,
United States.
I heard you mention he's an arms manufacturer. I didn't hear you mention
No, merchant, salesperson.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, arms salesperson. It's no different than
Right,
somebody
right.
working at Walmart in the shotgun aisle for bullets. That's what he was. A person who
Right.
sold weapons on the behalf of the Russian government. Like when but not me, but when the military sell planes to like UAE or Israel or anything like that, that's the salesperson of the corporation who sells arms to another country. You see, the context is important about what we're complaining about here because that's how we get confused. This person was just a salesperson. Came over here. He didn't go through the correct channels. He didn't register properly. And that's how he got messed up and in the situation that he was in because he didn't go through the proper process. Just like in the United States, people lobby on the behalf of foreign governments, but they don't register as a foreign agent. That's against the law. That's pretty much what the guy was charged with. So yeah.
Two things that I see here. Number one is there's this term called arms dealer that popular culture and movies have made people kind of think of as something, something kind of different from what typically just happens in the world, right? The arms dealer is some kind of warlord, dark underbelly type figure. And I think that is kind of what people think of. They just say arms dealer. And it sounds very seedy, very big, also very consequential. The second thing is with regards to the process. There is a process, but also you're going to come out here and play political footballs. So the fact that if something falls in your lap, such as an intersectional save or whatever, and you're going to come out and you're going to make a deal out of it, well, that just is what it is. It's nothing new. The term political football exists. The term don't let a crisis go to waste exists for precisely these reasons. These are not a priori things. These are kind of post hoc things. They just happen. People use whatever events happen for their advantage. And not much needs to be dug in. I'm going to continue to play a little bit of this and we get some more reactions here.
Remain in close touch with Paul's family, the Whelan family, and my thoughts and prayers are with them today. They have to have such mixed emotions today. And we'll keep negotiating in good faith for Paul's release. I guarantee that. I say that to the family. I guarantee you. And I urge Russia to do the same to ensure that Paul's health and humane treatment maintained until we are able to bring him home. I don't want any American to sit wrongfully detained and one extra day if we can bring that person home. My administration has now brought home dozens of Americans who were wrongfully detained or held hostage abroad, many of whom had been held since before I took office. And today, we also remember the other Americans that are being held hostage and wrongfully detained in Russia or anywhere else in the world. Reuniting these Americans with their loved ones remains
Hey, can we
a
stop
priority.
right there?
A priority for my administration.
Now,
There you go.
if what MOT is saying is true, then it was not Biden's administration that had anything to do with these dozens of people that have been released. Is that
Are we talking about different issues outside of Griner, or are we talking about the Griner issue?
Yeah, because
Okay.
Biden just
Okay.
said, he just got done saying that his administration, under his administration, dozens and dozens of people that were being detained, or falsely detained or whatever, have been released. So by what you're saying, due to the process, that he actually can't take credit for that, because they are separate. They're separate entities. If he can't be blamed for prioritizing Griner over others, then he also can't take credit for anybody that is being that's been released. Do you?
All right.
Is that
well,
fair?
No, it is not fair at all.
Okay. All right.
When actual Barack Obama went to go get Bin Laden, most of that work was being done a long time before he got there. A long time before he got there. Now, the Bush administration was not trying to get Bin Laden. Even though all the groundwork was laid, they made a decision not to go that far. Administrations make decisions on what they want to do. This is why I say that there's a department that handles all this. And since we don't understand the departments and their actual capabilities, because they're negotiating for all releases all the time. But there's two sides to this negotiation. There's one side of this negotiation, which is us wanting something. There is their side of the negotiation that they have to give up something. Some actual people just don't want to give up anything and don't even try. The only thing you can see is the results, because they're not going to let you know or me know. Like when we went to, I was part of the operation to go get those hostages with Jesse Jackson in the 90s. We didn't know what was going on. We just knew that we were cops on a plane. What the fuck? Jesse Jackson's here. What the fuck is this? That's what it was. We didn't even know what was going on. So it's like all of this stuff that we're postulating, you're trying to take credit away from this guy when you're not political. You have to have a side picked in order to make these type of aside issues outside of that. The problem is he gets the credit because it happened under his administration. He won.
Yeah, so
because
these are executive branch departments, right? Department of Justice and such like that. So the executive always can. I'm going back to my whole political football thing again. You come in, you're the CEO of some company. Obviously, there've been initiatives that have been going on. In the case of the United States, people call it the deep state. In other words, these people in the departments that are there that outlast governments and so on and so forth. They have initiatives that are going on. But when you pop up as the president, then you get to say, yeah, I just did this. Even things that don't have anything to do with, such as when presidents say, I created jobs, or presidents say, the economy went great, when it had nothing to do with it. It was all the business cycle or the Fed printing, all that kind of stuff. We understand, or let me just say, my interpretation, whenever executives like this, whether they be a CEO or a president, makes these kind of declarations, is very inconsequential to me. Like, it doesn't matter. It's not going to move my vote.
Okay, well, I have a question. I have a question for Dr. Thunder. Who's responsible for 9/11? Bill Clinton or George W. Bush?
That's sticky. I would say both of them, but
okay, it's George W. Bush's fault. If you ever read anything about the issue, it's totally George Bush's all the way fault. All right. See, the problem is that we have to know about these issues. We can't just Monday morning quarterback in front of people who don't know about the process. You see, I have the burden of knowing what the process is and being a part of the process. The only thing I'm dealing with is food fight from the actual peanut gallery, not in front of people who also don't know what the process is. And now we're trying to have
the process.
I already explained the process. I explained it twice already.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it again.
I still think that I don't think that you either didn't understand what I was pointing out.
Okay,
because
so could you rephrase your question?
Okay.
Rephrase your question.
Yeah, because basically I'm saying is if Biden didn't have any say in if Griner was the person that was going to get released, who was going to be offered for in a trade. If he actually didn't have anything to do with that, and it's other folks, right, in this process that you're talking about that's happening all the time, then neither can he take responsibility or take credit for that, but also he wouldn't be able to take credit for these dozens of releases that he was talking about, that he just got done mentioning. So either he can take the blame for Griner being the person that was selected over someone else, or he can take the praise for these dozens of people that were released. But it seems to me that he can't take both.
He can't take both. Point. The problem is, Dr. Thunder, is that you're trying to take credit away from something that happened under his watch. That's what happened. And until you have a better understanding of the process, which I suggest you study up on, because I come here with the knowledge of the process. You come here with the knowledge of just trying to take credit away from someone and trying to throw a whole bunch of.
Can we get this process?
That's very different. Like I said, I've already explained the process twice. This is between a whole State Department, a whole Justice Department, and the Pentagon. It's between those three issues, and they did not check in with Black male America, who don't know anything about how anything works. They did not check in with any of these people when they're doing this. This is an ongoing thing that is always happening. Ongoing thing.
You've repeated yourself. You've repeated that, and I.
But you're not understanding it, though. That's the problem. You're not understanding it. I give an explanation. You don't know what's going on. I give an explanation, and then you tell me that your explanation is incomplete because you don't know what.
Okay, hold on. Let me interject, and then let me interject, and then I'll continue playing the video, because I don't have any difficulty seeing both sides here. As I mentioned, when executives come out and take credit for things that are under their watch, that's what the executive is there for. They get the slings and they get to take the glory. Right. If you do anything on an executive level, you know that most of the shit that's happening has nothing to do with you. The processes that are there, the people that are there, okay, and all those. But you are there to take responsibility. And yes, you do have some influence. Well, you should have known better. You should have fired this particular secretary or that. But the idea of kind of trying to pin, neatly to whether who should take credit or blame on the executive level, again, it's kind of like pointless. Whether you're a CEO or a president, it doesn't really matter, right? There's a process. There's in this case a deep state, or there's a administration of the company that is happening, and there are initiatives that go on. Russia and United States didn't start negotiating yesterday, right? So, but the president or the CEO or whomever gets to come up and say what they get to say. And there's nothing, it's like a cloud for you to try to, there's nothing solid there, is my point. But hopefully that makes sense, right? But let's play a little bit more of this.
Person in my administration involved in this. We're going to continue to work to bring home every American who continues to endure such an injustice. We also want to prevent any more American families from suffering this pain and separation. And I strongly urge all Americans to take precautions, including reviewing the State Department's travel advisories before they travel overseas, which now includes warnings about the risk of being wrongfully detained by a foreign government. Make no mistake about it. This work is not easy. Negotiations are always difficult. There are never any guarantees. But it's my job as President of the United States to make the hard calls and protect American citizens everywhere in the world, anywhere in the world. And I'm proud that today we have made one more family whole again. So welcome home, Brittany. And now I'd like to invite Sherelle to say a few words to you all. Of course, she's not excited at all about this. Sherelle, it's all yours, kiddo. Congratulations again.
Thank you. So over the last 9 months, y'all have been so privy to one of the darkest moments of my life. And so today I'm just standing here overwhelmed with emotions, but the most important emotion that I have right now is just sincere gratitude for President Biden and his entire administration. He just mentioned this work is not easy, and it has not been. There's been so many hands involved. And so I'd like to take a moment to just specifically mention a few. Vice President Harris, Secretary Blinken, Jake Sullivan, Josh Geltzer from the National Security Council, Roger Cartson and Fletcher Schoen from the Hostage Envoy's Office.
The real people, right? The real people who do the real shit.
Special thank you to Governor Richardson and Mickey, the Mercury Players, the WNBPA, for your advocacy. And also, you guys may not know this, but my family has been tremendously supported by the Wasserman Agency. BG's agent, Lindsay Colas, has just been amazing for me and my family throughout this process. So today my family is whole, but as you all are aware, there's so many other families who are not whole. And so BG's not here to say this, but I will gladly speak on her behalf and say that BG and I will remain committed to the work of getting every American home, including Paul, whose family is in our hearts today. As we celebrate BG being home, we do understand that there are still people out here who are enduring what I endured the last 9 months of missing tremendously their loved ones. So thank you everybody for your support. And today it's just a happy day for me and my family. So I'm gonna smile right now. Thank you.
All right. So LAR, we give you a chance to get in a word in here. So you see the title of the show basically saying that basically you don't get a say at a table that you're not part of, and you were not consulted, and you perhaps didn't even have any dog in the fight or any chips on the table. Do you think that people are making this intersectional argument and all these other arguments unjustly, unduly? Like, or what are your thoughts as to that and what everyone else has said about it so far?
I think that two people, okay, using both of the people that got traded, two people went outside of their country, did something that could get them spanked in their own country and got spanked in another country. So people are using it as a, a political tool or whatever to say, we're making headway. Because I think Griner was overcharged, but she did what? If she did 9 months, that's around about the time that they was going to give a regular person who did that in Russia, if I'm not mistaken. Now, the arms dealer, he probably got way longer than he was supposed to get if it was just that he did. So to me, it's just a way for people to play around and muck around in the water about, this is our team and this is what we do and we're looking out for people, which I get it. Countries fight for their people all the time. But I think, in my opinion, what winds up happening with situations like this is, unfortunately, you have people who it emboldens them to go outside to another country and do something that they shouldn't probably do because they know these countries have issues with each other.
Yeah. Well, if you're stupid enough to, go do something and get caught up thinking that, you're gonna risk the few months before you get rescued by President Biden or whatever. Well, well, then you have other problems. If that's how you think now, okay, I'm gonna fill up my toiletry bag with all the extra vape cartridges and just go for it. That'll be a stupid decision, right? But shout out, okay, to the people in the panel. I mean, and shout out to people in the chat. All right, we don't see the super chats yet. Keep them rolling in, right? Like, share, subscribe. Let's move slightly now. Still in the theme of negotiations, I want to ask a question. And let's start with Dr. Thunder, right? And then let's hop into this. True or false, Dr. Thunder, okay? Coach Prime, okay? He needed or wanted or, decided that he has to go to Jackson State to showcase, right? That was the step. It was a stepping stone to showcase what he could do, to get a spotlight, right? That was the deal. So it's a simple true or false question, not a lot of controversy in there, and then you can kind of take it where you want a little bit, right? But starting with Dr. Thunder, the statement is this: Coach Prime went to Jackson State to showcase himself, and that was not the end goal or anything like that. And perhaps you have done certain things like that in your career. What is your response to that statement, Dr. Thunder?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he went to a place where the thought process could have been something like, if I show that I can turn this around, then this is going to, provide, this will create an opportunity at a bigger, better, institution, right? And he did that, and he created tremendous opportunities and connections to the institution. And then he got promoted. He went to Colorado. Colorado is celebrating him. The place that he left is, cursing his name. The president of the institution is cursing him. And a bunch of other pro-blacks and stuff are having an issue with that. And I think part of the part of the challenge that I have with this is one thing that's not talked about with regularity. Now, I work for PWI, and if you need people in PWIs that will target, that will specifically be there to find black folks to employ, because the way that institutions are set up, though you have this diversity and inclusion stuff, it is not particularly beneficial for black men. So you need people in those institutions that are.
Let me pause you, Dr. Thunder. I know where you're going objectively speaking. But let me ask you this: is this not the trap where people are again putting some kind of hope in the personal maneuvers and negotiations of an individual, right? So you're saying objectively, like, yeah, going to Colorado is not bad because likely he's probably this type of person that we'll consider black. And it's like, well, is this not the same mistake other people were making before, and they put all kinds of hopes into him, being at Jackson State? Meanwhile, the guy was doing
well. The reason, but in his case, the reason why I think that he actually will benefit a lot of black folks is because we're talking about football, and football disproportionately, the talented ones are darker complected.
Okay, right? So you're staying on that objective plane. You're basically de facto. You're looking at the okay. Yeah. Let me let you land, and
the fact is, players are going to have a much easier time getting selected in the NFL draft if they play for a Division I, Pac-12, team. That's just the truth. That's just what's going to happen. And no matter how much they build up the HBCUs, you still disproportionately the players are going to be picked from Division I schools. And all of the coaches on his staff also, which are part of what made Coach Prime successful, right? He's taken most of those coaches with him. The recruiters, the machine that he developed at Jackson is all being promoted. So that's a big win. At the institution I work at, if I wasn't there, if my predecessor wasn't there that hired me, and then if I was not there and it's not like you have to hire people that are of lesser skill or lesser quality. It's just that these institutions, they're tribal, and they tend to hire people that look like the institution. So you need some folks that don't look like the institution that have different networks to bring in different kinds of folks. And disproportionately, opportunities are going to go in the direction of those PWIs, people that are pushed through the PWIs. I don't have anything against HBCUs. I have nothing against HBCUs. However, if we're honest, we know that as far as opportunities and as far as job placement, X, Y, and Z, you're just talking about a different ballgame. It's just a different kind of thing. So.
Mm-hmm. Well put. So MOT, true or false, Prime needed to go to Jacksonville to showcase what he had to do. It was a career step, not difficult to understand. He didn't sign any contract with any particular community people that he was going to do something else. Well, what are your thoughts about that statement? He went there to showcase what he could do and then move on.
Correct. This is simply another issue that I'm just way more qualified to talk on, because I have deep ties to Jackson State, and I also live in Colorado, 30 minutes away from this stadium. So I have deep ties with both of these things. When Coach Prime was first going down there, the people of Mississippi thought that Coach Prime was going to come there and fix all these issues outside of football with him actually being there. Which I told him that was never going to happen. That this guy's going to be here a couple of years. He's going to get his sons on. He's going to build this team up. And when it's time for him to leave, he's going to take the whole team and his players with him, if it's allowed. Because you never hear of in college football a coach going from one team to another and them not allowed to take players with them. Coaches, yes. Players, absolutely not.
Do you think that's a
But
bad thing that he did? Like, taking people. What do you think in general? If he
outside of
did
his
anything
sons,
wrong?
yes. Yeah, outside of his sons, yes. Because essentially he took the whole machine that he built with him. That's my only complaint about it. But if he's being expected to win out the gate at Colorado and they're going to allow him to bring his team, because I can guarantee you, him going to the actual team was the first thing that was considered. Down the line during the negotiation, well, hey, can I bring my players with me? Normally the answer is no, you can't bring nobody with you. So I don't know how he got that deal to bring his actual players with him, because that stuff is really not even a thing where somebody, because people go from coaching jobs within college all the time, they don't take the team with them. But at the end of the day, if Colorado is going to allow him to bring in his machine, is going to put a whole lot of eyeballs on that institution. Those eyeballs are going to turn into media contracts. Like right now, CU Buffalo Gear is next to nothing for actually purchasing at King Supers or Albertsons or Safeway. I guarantee you, once they start winning, it's going to be the same amount of money as the Rockets. I'm sorry, as the actual Nuggets and the actual Avalanche gear. So they're going to get a lot out of bringing this guy here and making it win, because people want to watch winning institutions. The Buffaloes were not like a really winning institution like that. So the use was on both sides. They both were using each other. Jackson State, who decided to not pay this guy, knew that they were going to be in a position to actually give this dude more money to stay. They didn't do that. Other institutions who's going to be looking at this is going to be like, look, we need to be able to do whatever we can to win. Mississippi just wasn't going to be able to do everything that they could to win or to keep this guy. Because remember, the stuff comes from the state. The state wasn't going to pay for any of this stuff. So in Colorado, they're willing to pay and give him whatever he wants. It's just a better position to go to an actual institution that actually wants to give you everything that you want to win with more eyeballs on you. So I think it's great, but it's just that the people in Mississippi did not understand what he was doing while he was there, because they expected him to fix a whole bunch of issues that was beyond football. And I'm like, that's not why this guy is coming down here.
Yeah,
I had to tell people that just at Alcorn, Valley, Delta State, everywhere. They was like, no, this guy's going to be a good. I'm like, you got 2 years. Then this guy's out of here for another program that's far bigger. He got his sons on. He got his son starting. I'm not sure if he would have been able to do that with another institution out the gate. I'm not sure if they would have been able to get the spotlight like that out the gate, because normally they make superstar sons work their ass off to get on the team and be on there, because no coach is going to leverage their actual credibility on some superstar son. So it was a mutual use for both sides, but it's just that Mississippi needs to keep sweetening the pot, because this guy always had eyes for elsewhere. Deion Sanders played for, 4 or 5 teams in the NFL. He left Super Bowl teams to go to other teams that had better teams than the teams that he left. This was his actual all-star legacy. So we keep pretending like this guy was supposed to be in Mississippi for some indefinite period of time, when that wasn't his actual historical track record when it came to his sports playing. So that's what it is.
Okay.
I mean, it's just that people don't understand the history. They don't want to understand the history. They want to put this guy in a bad position. They expect him to be down there to do some things. But okay, Jackson, Mississippi, Clarion Ledger is the actual newspaper. We talked to the sports writers there. They knew what was going on, but they had to sell some other type of story to people. Now they have to sell another type of story that they were betrayed or whatever. But it's just that they knew. These people are not. But it's just that the people on the ground are thinking something else. I think it's a good deal for him. That's what he did. It was a mutual use on both sides. And I'm proud of him for going to a bigger institution that he doesn't have to worry about all the things that are going on in Mississippi. I'm talking from a guy who's from Mississippi and a guy who actually lives in Colorado.
So you say true. He got to showcase himself, got his sons on, had a great deal more leverage than he would have had elsewhere, right?
Yes.
And now there's this kind of either deliberate or pretend misunderstanding that goes on, and then people journalism-wise spin things. But we're gonna go around on this particular issue a couple more times. But LAR
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I know academics that work at HBCUs and academics that work at, Big Ten schools, Division I schools, as it were. And it's just a different ball game. The kind of money that you have at your access to facilities, it's just totally a different ball game. And I don't think that it makes any sense for folks to expect this guy to stay at Jackson State when he has the kind of opportunity that Colorado put forth. And, the facilities were just dilapidated, and he was paying half of his salary and stuff to, to help to pay salaries for people that were working for him. It's just totally ridiculous. And only it's my estimation that only black men are expected to, sacrifice what would be better for themselves and their family for the sake of a community that doesn't care for us very much.
Now, let me go ahead and acknowledge these super chats. Shout out to Hakeem. Thank you very much. Got $5 in there right after I asked for it. Much appreciated. Sorry for the delay. Game changer. Always showing love. Shout out to you. You say great show and topic. $5 super chat as well. So LAR, right? In your both what you've heard, what you know, and all those kinds of things, do you think that Coach Prime gave a fair? Did he do his part in the bargain here? Okay, so we agree. The bargain is a career move. It's a step. We illuminated and started kind of enumerating the things that he got out of it. Dr. Thunder started talking about the raw deal on the other end. MOT talked about the fact that, Mississippi did not continue to sweeten the pie, which they should have known that they should have done, and that kind of stuff. In all, right? And is it 50-50 here? Worked out, he gave, or are people whom say, well, he didn't really give enough? Are they justified at all? And where is that coming from? Where is this kind of community thing coming from? If that makes sense, Eliar.
From what I understand, he really overgave, and they tried to lowball him on the back end. And he tried, if I'm not mistaken, he tried not just within the university to work with him financially, but he tried to reach out to the black community who was well off to see if they can, sweeten the pot for him to stay. So
how much about that do you know? Because I see clips, I read Reddit stuff, and people are like, "Oh yeah, he went to LeBron and Jay-Z and asked all these billionaires
I wouldn't believe LeBron and Jay-Z though. I wouldn't believe LeBron and Jay-Z. I could what I know about what I've heard about Prime is he's very smart, very resourceful. So he'll figure out a way to make something work, if he can. So like all the celebrities that was coming, all the people who wanted to wear the gear, all the people who were supporting him, sending a message in the DM and this, that, and the third, who wanted to ride the wave, I'm pretty sure he reached out. In some way, shape, form, or fashion. But at the end of the day, it's like when you're asking somebody to overdo a job and they overdo a job and you still want to underpay them, you're getting what you asked for. Because if that thing about the ticket sales is correct, that was the end right there. Because if you shorten the ticket sales because you didn't want him to make a percentage after 30,000, you knew he wasn't coming back because you did it on purpose. And that's the one thing about especially HBCUs and the SWAC in general. If you winning in the SWAC, winning in college football in general, once you win, the revenue goes up into the school, the revenue because of the ticket sales, because of the merchandising, because of all the traveling and everybody representing your school, this, that, and the third, that brings more money to the school. But if you mismanage that, that's on you. MOT was talking about the transfer, you can do it now. It used to be you couldn't do it at first. But when they started the portal before the NIL, you can basically go wherever, because his Shiloh was at South Carolina, and then he went to Jackson when his dad was in Jackson, because Shiloh was already in college, and then he went to Jackson, and then now he's probably gonna go to Colorado. And I forgot the guy that played at Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley. He did the same thing last year. The coach went from Oklahoma to USC, and the quarterback went with him. So that happens. That's going to happen more now than it used to. But he did what he was supposed to do. Jackson didn't do enough to keep him, but the issue is probably beyond that. They should be trying to keep the staff. That should be they should have been trying to keep the staff because they underpaid Dion. So you should at least try to keep the staff because those connections still work. Because of a boy that he took from Valley, guess what? He knew him. You know what I'm saying? He knew the head. So now Mississippi Valley is missing a head coach now. Mm-hmm. So could he have gone any other place out of high school? Yes and no. He could have probably went somewhere else in Texas, but Florida State didn't take him and FAU didn't want him in a sense. So he had to go to the HBCU route per se. He probably could have went to SMU if he wanted to. But it was always going to be a smaller institution.
Well said, sir. Shout out to $10 super chat. Highest number for the day from a panelist. Nonetheless, shout out to Man of Tomorrow. $10 says control of program with resources is greater than control of program without resources and have to donate your salary. Very controversial statement. I don't know if I can agree with that. I think it's debatable. Anyways, just kidding, but thank you. Now, Kaiser, let me ask you something, and then this is a general thing, and then we'll refocus into the Coach Prime thing. It's general in the sense that you can watch Coach Prime operate like this. He moves into a particular place where he knows he can get a lot of leverage, quote unquote, Black community, all that kind of stuff. You get big fish in small pond type situation. You can get now highlight and you can lift that place up. You can showcase your ability. There are people who put a lot of hope in, let's say, a Coach Prime or somebody else in some negotiation that they have no part in or whatsoever, rather than learn the move the person is making. Okay, there's this group idea. In other words, what are your thoughts, okay, as to how you can look at someone like a Coach Prime, let's say a community can look at someone like a Coach Prime and see the moves he's making, rather than think that his moves should be here to benefit me or us, rather than, I like that he did XYZ here compared with this other person's ABC here. Why is there this idea that he is here to, Messiah complex, if you will? Comment on that, and then we'll go to Dr. Thunder, and we'll get a little bit more specific about the Coach Prime particulars and the sports and entertainment type thing, which people put a lot of hopes in. So, Kaizo, putting your hope in somebody as opposed to learning what the person is doing.
Yeah, great question. I think the first step is the guy was already pretty qualified. I mean, he was already a great player, and he already showed signs of being a decent coach. So I don't think he was given a position at Jackson State. I'm sure maybe some people wanted him to be there. I think he's going to grow the institution for the few years past. But from what I've done, like the research I did earlier, I think he was being paid roughly around $300K a year or something like that. And now the rumors on his new contract is something like north of $5 million a year. So it's like, if you compare those two numbers, it's like broke Ike version, right? Versus, MOT money. So which one do you choose? It's like, okay. So yeah, just looking at the numbers, you can't compare 5 million to whatever 100K. And the rumors about him paying other people that money, I'm not even going to go there. Let's just ignore that. The point here is this. The man was clearly extremely gifted. He won so many, team events over there. He had a great record in the last year, like 12-0. The previous year is like 12-2 or something. And so, I mean, the guy's amazing. They came out first in the East, right? So, and in 2020, they came like second, tied or something. So the guy had a great record. The record spoke for himself. I don't think he even had to look for the Colorado State offer, because he even mentioned in his Twitter, like, people are looking for him. So if people are already looking for you and you're in a position whereby, yes, they've been great to you, they've given you freedom to do what you did, and that's probably why he became what he did, because, right, you're a big fish in a small pond. But I have the same experience, right? I was a big fish in a small pond as well. I felt like those people wanted me to know my place, right? And sort of just stay in there in that sort of level. So there, unfortunately, there is a thing of they want you to stick there because they want to give you all that. Let's say make you the head coach, and give you all the freedom of how to operate your team, just so that you know, okay, if you move somewhere else, you won't have this. So
Oh
I
yeah. So, but
think that
let me refocus you on the particular point here about you are in a village. Your village person gets a great job. Rather than look at that village person and be like, how did he make those moves? Perhaps how can I be of value to him? How can I perhaps get in this network or something like that? You think that he's going to save your whole village, right? That's the analogy here. Why
yeah,
don't you? So now I'm asking you to psychoanalyze or basically just
definitely
comment on
right.
that whole notion there of you look at somebody rather than learn his moves, you thought somehow you put all your hopes again in a negotiation table where you were not even there.
Yeah. To comment on, I think the thing is, some people reason differently. So you have people who reason using logic. You have people like me. You have people like MOT who reason using facts, etc. And then also you have people like Dr. Thunder who uses both, but sometimes he prioritizes like the group experience. He actually wants people to have a decent life, right? So the issue is the people who focus only on the group metrics. They're gonna reason thinking, oh, we're all the same people. We're all from the same village. Like there is some kind of like how do you call it? You guys in America, it's like you sing to the flag every morning or something. Is that patriotism? So some people are prioritizing patriotism above personal, let's say, benefits. And unfortunately, some people, especially if they even became good enough to be in that position, whereby they're now controlling their team, they're making it win like that. There's no way that the group logic would have been what made them get there. It would have been more on like precise knowledge of how the team is run, which players, basically all the skills that are contradictory to group level reasoning is what got him there. So of course, people like that, they just hedge their bets because that's all they know, right? They don't know the other side.
Okay, good. Well put. Okay, so MOT, Dr. Thunder, LAR. Again, continuing with this theme of putting your hopes in a deal that you're not part of. How many people what are the hopes? What is the best case scenario for sports and entertainment? If sports and entertainment were to, be, ADOS community were to fully leverage sports and entertainment, how many Black people can actually benefit from it, actually participate in it? How could it uplift
Well,
the
a
community?
simple example here. Yeah, sorry, one
Well,
second.
go ahead, say what you're going to say, and then
Yeah,
I'll.
a simple example here is the African teams, right? We can see in the football World Cup, you guys call it soccer, right? But
Soccer.
the World Football FIFA thing. If you look at the African teams, it's exactly the same situation, right? It was actually a Cameroonian who basically more or less made sure that the Cameroon team didn't go through because they scored for Switzerland or whatever it is, and made sure that Cameroon couldn't go
Yeah.
through. So the point is, like, if you don't know exactly what the individual players want and you make it really clear, and you can't create a system around what those individual talents want, or you're not gonna get anywhere because
Yeah,
people
then
are
you don't
always
have
very
anything. Yeah, 100%. So
right.
basically, for
You don't
people
have
who don't follow
leveraging.
soccer and all that kind of stuff, basically, there's an African player in all the great teams. And it could be argued that it's the African players that make them great. No big surprise, whatever, right? I mean,
Oh, there's like 15 in the French team, and they're
yeah,
probably the
yeah,
best.
it's ridiculous in terms of like, some of these white countries just have all Black teams. It's kind of funny. It's like a repeat of, sports in the United States globally. But MOT, why so much focus on the entertainment sports thing? Even in the best case scenario, what could it do, right? If you don't mind commenting on that, and then Dr. Thunder, LAR.
Yeah, but like Coach Prime is a cultural thing. If you look at him, if you look at the way he dresses, how he bees in these interviews, like most people who don't have their stuff together, heavily want to leverage the kind of the street issue of how he looks and presents
Mm.
himself. That's what they're after, because most of these people are extremely shallow and they don't know about any other issue. So that's what they're talking about, because it's a cultural issue, because most of these people don't have independent masculinity for their own success to actually talk about. So they leverage other people's situations and try to make it their own situations. It's kind of like the reason why we're talking about the Brittany Griner thing. The only thing is because anti-black women and don't like gay people. You put them both together in this issue with no understanding of how things work. That's why people are running their mouth about the Brittany Griner issue. The Coach Prime situation is a guy who was expected to save an actual state. Mississippi has been messed up since before the Civil War with a football program. That's what people on the ground was thought that was going to happen. And then you have like the more pro-black that cannot create a decent black family who's trying to stick somebody in a situation that's not going to work for their own satisfaction, ignoring all the facts on the ground. And it's like, this is why we talk about these issues, is because we're trying to tie culture into these issues when we could just look at these issues for the meaningless things as it is, discuss it for the actual point that it is, and move on. Because no one else is discussing this issue anymore. It's understand the process, understand the issue. The stuff is already done. They're not going to take the money back from Colorado that they offered them. And apparently there's a whole hell of a lot more things going on the ground there, because they actually are invested in his success in Colorado versus Jackson State. And I think it's a great deal for him. I think
If you don't mind, if you don't mind, a couple of sentences on, for example, the particular constituent, because there's a constituent that you mentioned. Okay, just looking at the guy as kind of like the Floyd Mayweather effect. Oh yeah, it looks that way. Blah blah blah. But the people whom perhaps thought legitimately that the football program was going to move the dial on some aspect of Mississippi in a particular way, is there something, because you just compared at the end there with Denver, right?
Yeah.
What would that look like? Like, how do you squeeze all the juice out of that particular sports thing in Mississippi to get the benefits?
The thing is, no one knew how it was going to happen. They just expected it to happen without understanding the process. You would not believe some of the conversations I have been a party to as soon as that guy came there. Some conversation I had to check out of. I'm talking about from football coaches at these HCBUs. I'm like, where are you guys getting this information from? You know this guy's not going to be here over 2 years. And I'm talking about there's somebody who graduated in my class who is a coach at Valley. And I'm like, we had this conversation when I was there for homecoming in October. I'm like, what are you saying? I'm like, as soon as he's offered more money and the same level of control plus resources, he's gone. He's probably going to take his sons with him if they can go. And
so there was never a vision. There was never a vision. There was never a program. Nothing hypothetical. Go ahead.
Nothing.
MLT, but he already has money though. He didn't need that money.
That's why he but nobody wants to work for free. But like he came there. Wait, hold on. So let me explain it. If you see how much money he's getting paid now, doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense to donate your salary if you know you're going to end up with a bigger and better program that's going to offer you the same level of control, because other people just care about success. And if they give you the money, the control, and the resources to get success, and you already don't have that in Mississippi,
maybe he wants to be an NFL coach, and he's just using Colorado is a much bigger market with a lot more students.
Yes, it is.
Right. So I think he's actually trying to be an NFL coach. So
why wouldn't you want to be?
This is the next step. Right. But
I mean, for me, I have no idea. I could just go off what the points are right now. I think it's two birds with one stone.
Right.
His job was to get his sons on, which he did, on the team that he's coaching, which he can control how much time they play. And yeah, if they're going to go to the NFL, he could probably end up on the NFL team. That's totally possible. But at this point, it's a stepping stone. And he's not going to be given that longer period of time in Colorado to be successful either. He's probably going to be given 3 years. When Harbaugh went to Michigan, nobody thought he was going to be winning games in actual Columbus. No, nobody thought that. But it did happen.
Yep.
So, Dr. Thunder, comment on this kind of the sports thing, the sports and entertainment thing. Seems like people have hopes, but they don't have a program. They don't have a. It's similar to there's a running theme, right? Last week we talked about how Kanye is out there being a billionaire, but we know George Soros is a billionaire, Peter Thiel is a billionaire. Billionaires have their political machines that Peter Thiel owns senators and stuff like that. So he doesn't have to come out here and say crazy stuff. So in the same way, you have perhaps let's say a community that has hopes, but there's no program, there's no agenda, there's no notion. And perhaps the thing that they're pinning their hopes on is all smoke and mirrors, and what could be the best that could come out of it anyways. What is the maximum percentage of people that can make it into the NFL and if they were all black, whatever, right? That kind of thing. So generally speaking, why put high hopes in places where you don't belong and in things that perhaps could not even really, it's all symbolic. What could you benefit from this?
So the question is, rephrase the question.
So in simple terms, or should I say the actual question, right, is sports and entertainment and the focus on it with regards to it saving the community, right? Why is there such a, because a lot of people saying all kinds of things about he betrayed this, he didn't do that, and they actually have real hopes behind it. What's going on there?
Look, that whole, singing and dancing and running fast, because that's the only stuff that black folks can do. I think what it is that we have a poor image of ourselves. Now, I'd argue that image is obviously you have slavery, and then you have stuff that happened after that. You've got minstrel shows, and Hollywood has basically been pumping out these same images of black folks, and black folks buy it, totally have embraced it, and then because you don't have the fathers in the household in most of the situations, you just have a lot of issues with people's like self-esteem, right? And so they actually think that these other methods, these ways that we're already known for being great athletes and stuff like that. So they basically tie our success as those things go, that's how we're gonna go.
So there's something here, Dr. Thunder, I wanted to kind of say, and then we'll have LAR, and then we'll kind of start wrapping the stuff up. Basically, it has to do with this soft power notion, right? So entertainment, sports, soft power, right, is the kind of power that America has when in terms of people loving Coca-Cola and Disneyland and McDonald's all over the world. It's an image thing, right? So image is important as an aspect of power. However, you cannot soft power your way into solving hard problems. What I mean by that is, if you don't actually have economic power, you're not going to poster and image and market your way to the top, right?
And here's the other issue. When you don't understand the system, and when you don't understand how to leverage the system, even if you are able to generate tremendous wealth, which black folks have created tremendous wealth, you won't have anything purposeful, meaningful, something that's actually going to help in the long term to spend the money on. So you just be wasting the money, throwing the money away, spinning rims and all that kind of stuff, rather than on building our own systems. We could have, a long time ago, we could have had our own football league or our own basketball league, or we could have had our own. I mean, all of that stuff is, has always been within our range, but we just don't spend the money right. We get the money. We have poor discipline as a group. We have poor discipline with finances. So it's just a lot of wasted money and then complaining when other people are not spending their money the way you want them to spend their money. And that's what this is about. We could have been more disciplined and created our own power, but instead of that, we wasted ours, and now we're complaining because Prime is going and getting the bag, where we think he's supposed to sacrifice more for the community. So it's just a circle. It just keeps going over and over.
So LAR, last week when we mentioned something similar, because Dr. Thunder is talking about having money but not having a machine, not having a participation. You're not partaking. You're not doing the things that you have to do, especially in a democracy. Because I mentioned Peter Thiel speaking at the RNC. It's not because this billionaire genius loves to make silly political speeches with idiots, right? No, but it's part of the game he's playing. He has PACs and he owns senators, and he plays that game not because he loves it, not because it's a great game. It's a stupid game, but he knows that it's very important to get what you want. and getting what you want. It's not about going to Alex Jones or throwing stones from the outside or doing this kind of very marketing, very kind of symbolic type stuff. So LAR, just a quick comment on this aspect here, and then I want to go back. I'll ask guys about this power thing. This aspect of the sports and entertainment. You've heard what everyone has to say about it. What are your thoughts about that? Best case scenario, worst case scenario. Why are people putting so much hope on this thing? What could it actually do?
I'm gonna use it as Prime's a Florida boy. He's from Florida, and most people who've watched at least college football in particular know that in the 80s, basically college football, Miami football plus a little bit of the cocaine industry actually helped build Miami. Florida State football helped build Tallahassee. Florida Gator football helped build Gainesville. And what it is I think people put so much hope on the idea of if I can bring winning institution to this area, we can build a better city. Like when you think of Baton Rouge, you think of LSU. That helped build the city of Baton Rouge. So people are looking at sports as the way, because in essence, that's what packs the stadium. That's what packs the hotels. That's what packs the restaurants. That's what has people, depending on where you at, flying in and out of the airport. That's what's selling tickets. That's what becomes an event. That's when celebrities, quote unquote, come to the campus, and it's that and the third. And especially coaches who played before, or players who played in college or of a certain age, they remember these campuses when they first got there, and they remember these schools and these cities when they first got there, and predominantly from football, you've seen the growth, and that's where the issue is. And when it comes to quote unquote HBCUs, people are like, man, why can't you do this with quote unquote us? And like Dr. Thunder was talking about, it's that it's not just a stereotype, but the history of mismanagement of money. And because if you think of big college towns, like about it, Clemson got huge recently, but they were a powerhouse in the 80s, but people left because it just wasn't like that. Nobody was thinking about going to Alabama. Like Alabama football basically created a whole enclave to itself. The only other thing outside of sports that has to do with sports that helped build the city, what I could possibly say is Phil Knight, with his benefactoring to Oregon, because that's his alma mater. And that generated people going there, and then it made money for the school. So I think that's why the sports and entertainment part really goes that way.
So you look at the tourism industry. That's the way, if you wanted to speak of it, and then from a city or national kind of, people look at tourism. Yeah, but you also have to have street lights and safety taken care of, and don't get robbed at those hotels, and good service, and the restaurant. All those things actually have to work, and you have to build them in conjunction, like in parallel. You're bringing people in. You're making sure that product market fit works. It's not just magic.
No, that's why they're tripping, because people had to do all of that in the 80s and the early 90s, and they went through all of that. They've seen people go. It wasn't a good idea to be in Miami in 89, 91 just to go to a football game. You get what I'm saying? Like, you had to watch yourself at a certain point. So it's like people watched it with quote unquote other communities, and other communities used the quote unquote black players to build, I guess, some type of sports empire. Is just, we can't do it, or we're not doing what it takes to do it.
Yeah, I like that doing what it takes aspect there. Kaiser, let me ask you this and your final thoughts, and then go MOT, LAR, and then do Dr. Thunder here. And I just wanted to expand upon this notion here of, first of all, you have to get the hard power, and that involves solving hard problems. That involves your ability to build roads, put copper in the ground for electricity, your ability to move water around, reclaim the water in the ground. If we're talking about building a city now and all that kind of stuff. And then there's the soft power, your flag and your this and your swag and all that kind of stuff. There is a big confusion between these two sometimes in certain quarters, in the sense that people think that they can do the soft power thing and everything just magically happens. They can just bring in the black players and the roads are going to be fixed and the hotels are going to be running 24/7 and everything else. Okay. If you don't mind, Mr. Logic, expounding upon this idea that you cannot soft power your way into solving hard problems. You can't soft power your way into solving hard problems. You got to do the hard shit first. The soft power stuff is a patina on top of that. Any thoughts on that? And then your final thoughts or closing remarks.
Yeah, well, you can soft power your way through stuff, but it's not reliable. I think the main thing here is reliability. So, like,
Makes sense.
how often? Yeah, how often? For example, let's say if they brought this guy in, Coach Prime, into the place, and then expect him to sort of fix what they know, they couldn't necessarily fix. He would have brought in more people, maybe more money through advertising, whatever, however ways that they make money. He would have increased the market that way, and that's all true. The issue is, though, as you mentioned, is if you don't actually lay down the groundwork, if you don't actually have roads that are functional, like meaning the system there, how they treat the players, maybe the success rate of actually developing, whatever it is that actually makes them function and actually differentiates them from, let's say, Colorado State. If you don't fix those internal things, like, let's say, making sure there's an actual assistant coach being paid enough and not actually being paid through the money of the head coach, for example, if you can't solve those problems, now that's the infrastructure problems that you're talking about here in your analogy. So it's not going to be sustainable. So because the thing is, what they're doing is they're bringing someone and they're expecting that person to sort of be their new hope, right? And we do this a lot in our community, I think, in respect, right? Kevin Samuels, Black Jesus. I'm not going to mention the other ones. I might offend some people, but we always have a savior who becomes our main person. When they disappear, well, I don't know. So
you mean winter isn't coming? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, right. So the issue I would say is that people that rely on soft power, yeah, sometimes they get lucky, and but it's not reliable. The main thing to actually make something that's lasting is create an infrastructure and actually notice why the things aren't working the way they are. And the last point I guess I'll make here is the same analogy with the Africans and football is this. Africans are the biggest talent in football. I'm talking about normal football. Black Americans, there's a lot of them also talented in so-called NFL, right? So the talent isn't the issue. It's actually how the institutions are run. Maybe you could say the funding issue, whatever it is. The point is, it's the infrastructure problem, not a talent problem. So it's can't
boring stuff. Like speaking at the RNC as well, if we're going to talk about the political stuff, what I noticed about it is that it's very boring, right? It's very boring. The boring crap, like putting wire on the ground to get electricity in Nigeria, for example. You don't want to talk about that. People want to talk about. You want to talk about the African Union. You want to talk about some kind of. People like talking big politics, macro shit. People don't like so they can bullshit. Anyways, finish.
Yeah, people don't like doing what it takes to get somewhere. But I also say that there's a lack of belief. Like, there's two lacks of belief, right? For example, the guy did leave, right? It's like the whole women and men space, right? It's like if you find a fat wife, if you bring her up and you take her to the gym. When she's no longer fat, she's going to leave you, right? Or the same thing, vice versa, right? So there is two sides that are competing each other. It's like, okay, are they going to leave me once they get what they want? So you also even have a fear, like a sense of fear of building, because when you're building, that's long term. That's like trans-temporal. But if you rely and put your eggs in the basket of cultural, the guy's the same culture as you, he's out here, he's black or whatever culture you're from, they feel like that's like the risk is higher, but the rewards are high. So that's what they feel.
All right, MOT. Final thoughts, but also, again, I brought this way to circle back on the question I asked you before, and it is, again, about comparing Colorado with Mississippi, a place which has certain things in place versus Mississippi, which is aspirational towards those things. I asked you earlier, what did the people whom had hopes in Mississippi, what were they trying to see happen? What were the difference? What was their program? What was the plan, even if it couldn't happen, right? So, again, closing thoughts, along with perhaps saying a little bit more about what Colorado has on the ground, actual real shit, boring stuff, I suppose, and Mississippi's lacking.
All right. As a person from both places, is night and day. He had to fight tooth and nail to get things done in Jackson State. There are already companies that are already signed up to help him with whatever he needs. He's making a hell of a lot more money outside of that salary on the ground in Colorado. I can guarantee you that because John Elway made a hell of a lot more money outside of the Denver Broncos in the local area outside of his salary, and that's what he knows that's what he's signing up for. In Mississippi, they just want things to be better. They wanted to outsource it to him. No plan, just get it done. We just want to benefit off of it once it's done. There was no plan. They just expected things to be better because they have an idea about celebrity. That celebrity is going to make things a hell of a lot better. But you have to understand that you got to have the celebrity along with the intellectual infrastructure is what protects power. The intellectual infrastructure, the boring things, that's what protects power. The having law firms, the having scientists, being able to protect your inventions whenever you go to companies and you do things. All this stuff is protected by other groups of people, but we don't protect it on our own. It's because we only see power through entertainment, not the actual infrastructure that it takes to maintain power. We're on a one shot. This person's going to do this, and then I'm going to benefit. When
Mhm.
there's never been a situation where you've seen that happen, but they believe in the hope of it happening, so that way they don't have to do any of the work for it happening, and they can always outsource it to other people. So Colorado is a pretty different deal. Pretty different deal when it comes to endorsements. Like they're gonna pay him millions of dollars a year to endorse every car company in the area. They're gonna pay him millions of dollars a year to do sports sponsorships when they're there. That's what happens with the head coaches and the actual popular players on the Denver Broncos. That's what's going on. That's what happens when you go to a situation like Colorado, a bigger market like that. Yeah, the 5 million. Yeah, that's peanuts compared to how much money he's going to make when he's there. And you don't know what type of business he's going to open there. It's going to also be super successful. So it's like where he's going is a better situation for him. And at the end of the day, Mississippi is not set up for that type of change.
Shout out, shout out. Well put indeed. So, LAR, what are your closing thoughts on this whole thing? And, ladies and gentlemen, just to remind you, case closed 4 p.m. Eastern time, right? 4 p.m. Eastern time every Sunday, every week it's going down. And today we're talking about the fact that, you get no say in negotiations that you aren't a part of. And you don't get to reap the benefits of, the when you did not do the boring work. Okay. But, LAR, what are your closing thoughts? And we'll go to Dr. Thunder.
I'm gonna take a different route. So I think a lot of America is built on soft power, and like when you're talking about the infrastructure and laying the wires down, I don't think people go to towns unless there's a ticket seller. I think sports, entertainment, and quote unquote recreation is the reason why people go to certain places in America. You look at the top cities, people go to LA for the Hollywood dream. They go to New York for the Broadway quote unquote dream. People go to Miami for the fun part. People go to Chicago now for, the legacy of the Bulls. People, like, when you think of major cities that everybody talks about and wants to be in America, it's usually tied to Vegas, entertainment, New Orleans, entertainment. So what winds up happening is you have people who we gravitate to sports and entertainment because that's where we see a community making money. Like until you get something that the city can rally around and say, we're this, we're that, I don't think it's always a mystique thing. That's what I'm trying to say. Like a lot of things don't go around that actual natural resources or people's input. Like Chicago is a beautiful city. Architecture is phenomenal. But the mystique of it is what? The mob and the Bulls and the Bears. You know what I'm saying? Pittsburgh is known for the steel plant, but what's the mystique about? Really the Steelers. So you got to have something that draws people in, even foreigners who want to come to America. America is the soft power land of milk and honey and opportunity. Nobody's actually coming because you know what? They could use me at an oil plant. Like, it's the mystique. So I think that's why people gravitate to certain things. So I ended with that.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. The mystique, and they're delusionally gravitating, and obviously everything's about a critical mass. Most people perhaps are always going to be delusional, but what you want to do is want to shift the center of gravity a little bit, just a little bit, to more people paying attention to boring crap, right? And and maybe going to engineering school and doing boring calculus, because that's actually what puts wires on the ground and builds power plants and all that crap. But anyways, maybe I'm a little biased now. Dr. Thunder, your closing thoughts on everything that we have discussed so far, sir. What you got on your mind?
Black Santa here. Yo, yo, yo.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Uh,
My bad. Supporting, Charles Ringo. Thank you very much. Is Black Santa a thing? Is this like Blackula? Is this some kind of black lore
Black
that I do not know about?
Santa. Yo, yo, yo. So nah, man. Everybody else had a hat, so I just thought I'd put a hat on. So yeah, it's interesting. I think the strength of the sort of comparison between these two issues is, unless you have a seat at the table to negotiate, and unless you are a stakeholder, what it is that you think doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't really matter. Now, there's a separate issue. There is an issue where does your opinion actually matter to the folks that are actually making the decision? Do they actually care about what you think? The answer to that is no. It doesn't mean that there can't be things learned from having discussion on certain topics. And so I think that there's a number of topics that get discussed in the space, and there's a wide range of opinions and perspectives and stuff like that. In my mind, that makes it interesting. I'm not making critical decisions based on much of the conversation that is had in the space. My decisions are made based on other kinds of information, usually. But it is not just entertaining, but thought-provoking, and it's good to hear what other folks have to add to the discussion, as it were. But no, the answer to the basic question, the point of the stream is no. If you're not a stakeholder, if you're not part of the of the power structure, no, your opinion doesn't matter, and it will not have any any impact on the decisions that are made. So so yeah, I mean that's the deal. I'm happy for Prime, and I said I've done a couple streams on his ascension, as it were, moving on up to the east side to a deluxe apartment in the sky and everything. I did a couple streams on it, and one of the things that I think is interesting is that people didn't from the beginning see this as, this is a really talented guy. I don't particularly like his style. I'm not a flash kind of guy, and that usually turns me off. But you can't argue with his effectiveness. He's very effective at Jackson, and I think he's going to be effective at in Colorado. And I think there's a reason why he chose Mississippi, the bottom of the HBCUs, as it were, as far as the sports programs and things. I think he chose that program because it was terrible, because he wanted to show that it was only him that could turn that thing around. And I think he also did that the same reason in Colorado, a team that went, 1-12. He chose a team that's on the bottom, so that if it succeeds, then they're going to have to look at him. And I saw some interviews where he was saying that he doesn't want to coach the pros, and that, you know, X, Y, and Z, he doesn't think that he could, you know, have this kind of impact on the pros. And that would be true with any coach, because when cats have money, you can't really tell them nothing, you know. However, I do think that is a likely end game for him, is to coach in the pros, and then to likely become some sort of general manager. I think that, and perhaps a partial owner of a team. So I think he has a lot that he can do, and his recruiting is, I mean, it's hard to argue with the kind of recruitment that he can do, and that's really what went. So, yep.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. With that, case closed, I guess, right? And it's always important to, perhaps, when we take these topical issues, right, provide insights to them with through lines that are relevant. Because what I saw today or this week with all these things going on was about negotiations, people thinking in zero-sum games, people placing hopes where it doesn't belong, and overall people wanting to be part of things that they don't have no stake in. They're not a stakeholder, right? So, and these kinds of things, you know, you can use these types of delusions that are out there to elucidate final points and to point people's heads into the direction that they should be pointing to, which is the boring stuff, right? But and as I mentioned earlier, you don't need you only need a critical mass. I'm not expecting that most people are going to be getting down with the boring crap, but you only need a few, right? You only need a few and to shift the center of gravity. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we're out. Shout out to the panel, MOT, LAR, Dr. Thunder, whatever, Kaizo, the Dusty East African. Shout out to him as well. And with that, we're out. Peace.
In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what dwells behind the curtain, the face of evil lurking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, that either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannons could breach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising and hearts are compromising, convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest and the righteous in your corners.